Hello and welcome. Be awesome at FM, be awesome at facility management followers, listeners, and viewers. If you're on live, welcome to our last episode of 2022. This is going to be a wrap up episode for us. We're really excited about what's in store for 2023, but I figured Paul and I would just chop it up a little bit and talk about all the things that were good, bad, ugly, and pretty in 2022. So, Paul, first and foremost, my co-host with the most that came on board with this crazy idea way back when. Welcome, my friend. I know where you're at. You're in Watertown. I now know all the backgrounds.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah,
but to be honest, I just drove 50 miles from the beach house to be here in Watertown.
Oh God, the trials and tribulations of Paul Anastasi, having a drive from the beach house to get to the podcast. So
how about that?
Let's
I'm going to be really honest with you. The reason I had to come back to Watertown is because I'm meeting with some of my old cronies from the city of Newton, and we're going out and toss a few back and have some chicken wings at 3:30.
That's what you should do.
That's right.
This week you should
when you're retired.
You should do some of that. Listen, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. You got a ways to go before you're going to be fully retired or considered to be fully retired. But no, this is kind of special, Paul. I think you'll agree with me on this, that sometime in January of last year, I called you, as I do regularly, and I'm like, hey, do you want to do a podcast with me? And with a little bit of hesitation, you came on board. You knew there'd be zero to little preparation for these episodes. A lot of times it's a 5 or 10 minute talk that you and I have, and you like to be a lot more prepared. So I got you really uncomfortable at times, which I'm proud of. I'm glad I did. And I will continue to do that. But, you came on board. We didn't know what we were going to do, other than we wanted to provide content for people in the facility management, specifically in the education space, that we thought that there was a little bit of a void for. And in that time, from the first episode launch in January 26th of this year to today, we have gotten, I think, 18 or 19 ratings and reviews, a couple thousand downloads, a very strong following. We're in the top 10% of the 3.2 or 3.3 million RSS feed podcast channels that are out there, which is pretty impressive. All without a whole lot of anything other than caring and wanting to do something.
Just turn it on, hot mic. That's what we do, and I think we've had some great content. I was thinking back, January, right? January 26th, you said was our first episode.
Yep.
So we went through previous to that. The world went through this whole mess where everybody was locked inside, couldn't go out, looking for things to do, and me and you wait until the gates are open, people are unmasked, and we can move around to start doing this, which we could have done for the longest time while we were driving ourselves crazy in the house, walking in circles.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes us a little longer to catch on.
Yeah, and I'm glad it did. I think we did it. Well, you know what? What's interesting. You and I are coming up on this year will mark 19 years. I will have known you for 19 years. Whether you want to acknowledge knowing me for 19 years would be the other side of the story. But we've known each other for 19 years. This coming May of 2023. It's a long time.
May too. You've got all those dates right there in your head, huh?
My first unofficial day was April 15th of 2004, and we only had 20 some odd clients at the time, and you were one of them in Newton. And I reached out to you in the first month or so, and we had that event in October of 2004 in your temporary
palatial surroundings.
Your temporary permanent housing that you had in the parking lot. So no, I remember that stuff. It's important to me. I just put a post on LinkedIn about New Brunswick ASBO from 2005 in Boston. There's a lot. You make everything memorable so that you don't forget that stuff. So, but we're coming up on almost 20 years of knowing each other, and a lot of folks don't. This stuff comes a whole lot easier when you know the other person real well, right? It's not as much work, and it's hard to do. And it's been funny because you and I just have a conversation like, yeah, you should talk about this, or we should have You know, we should have Scott Klein, the overall guy in New Jersey, on the podcast. I think he'd be a lot of fun. And we don't know anything more than that. And then we
Right.
dig in, and they've got this phenomenal story, right? And they've got all this stuff to share. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, we've known them all. Well, for me, I knew them all for about 2 days worth of a conference in New Jersey.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
speaking of that had to have been one of the coolest moments for me anyway with this effort, was when we went to New Jersey and we were standing in that god awful long line to check in, because it was like we all got there at the same time, and we're just standing there. And I have a sweatsuit. It's got the Be Awesome logo on the shirt, and then I have it on the pants. And the guy's looking at my legs behind me, and I'm like, "What is this guy looking at?" And he goes, "Hey, you're the guys on the podcast."
Yep.
Right? And it was like that celebrity moment. You're like, "That's right, I am." And he's like, "Yeah, I love it." And at that point, we had only had like 5 or 6 episodes. So for anybody to really kind of know us, recognize us, listen to us, watch us, was like, it wasn't a lot. You know, it was.
Yeah. And even your good friend Chris Martinetti, when I met him for the first time recently at that lunch, he made a comment, walked around people saying, I got to go shake hands and introduce myself with this guy. I've seen him on TV so much. I've watched him on my computer, and I've never met him.
Oh my God, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I had never met Chris before that.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at me, what a jerk.
Yeah, but I have got those comments quite a bit. It's oh yeah, actually in our industry, when I was at the MFAA conference, I can't tell you how many guys and gals came up and said, "Hey, I know you from the podcast," and I had never met some of them in my life.
Well, it's funny because
vendors and everything.
It's funny because you don't know who's listening, right? You don't know who's listening. You don't know who's watching. You don't know if the counter is right. And all of a sudden, you're right. And it's not just like they say something; they'll relate to something in the podcast that we said.
Yeah.
That for us it might not have been anything big, but to them it was monumental. And they're like, "Hey, I remember when you talked about, still Aaron Polanski's rapport before reports."
Yeah,
I've had more people that told me about that. I mean, you want to talk about, a tagline,
all unrehearsed,
right? You talk about.
We couldn't have staged that any better. We couldn't have practiced it. We couldn't have gone out and read the lines. Yeah, it just happened.
Yeah, it was probably one of the most natural minute of content with the most powerful tagline for leaders, which is rapport before reports. I've used it a bunch of times, but I've had so many people that tell me that they, hey, that made all the sense in the world. It's 3 words. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So
now was he our first guest?
He was our first official guest. Yeah, I had to do that kind of baloney. Hey, this is the intro, 3-minute episode just to get us on the channels. And then he was our first guest.
And he's someone that we sat with for a few minutes having lunch at a conference and didn't know he was the keynote speaker for the conference.
Yeah.
And got up there and used our context of lunch conversation in his keynote.
Yeah.
He's amazing. How, he just put it all together from sitting with us and having lunch.
It was a pretty amazing lunch conversation.
It was.
It
was. And I for a few minutes there, I thought it was kind of a weird thing that one of our lunch guests was taking notes.
Feverishly.
Well, a lot of people listen to us talk in those situations, but not many take notes.
Yeah. No, that's true. Hey, anybody that's watching live, feel free to ask any questions or Happy New Year and welcome. I'm getting numbers that are popping up and people are watching and viewing. So if you have a question, comment, or anything, just feel free to put them in the comment section on whatever platform you're. We're following the comment sections here. So,
so if you think you want to be a good guest, come on. We won't roast you. We promise.
We might a little bit. We might a little bit, but it'll be before we record.
It depends on who it is.
Yeah.
Where's Swoop? Is Swoop out there listening?
Yeah. Well, this guy's got to get. I mean, if he doesn't get
#1 fan right there,
if he doesn't get #1 fan of the year, something's wrong. Because I don't think there's an episode. And not only this, hey, David, don't text. I hope you're on the road, not driving.
He's driving
on the road, listening to 2 of the best guys in the world. Miss seeing you all, but looking forward to the new year. Happy New Year, Peach and Paul. David, Happy New Year to you and your family. David Young also, you made a Be Awesome tree topper he took a sticker and he put it on the top of his Christmas tree. So he gets the credit for this year. And hey, look at this. Another one we haven't heard from in a little while, but I guess he's been listening. Happy New Year to you, Matt Oliver. Hope to see you in 2023. Mark your calendar, Matt. You're up in New Hampshire. Mark your calendar. Paul and I will be in Portsmouth, New Hampshire on February 28th to March 2nd for the Northern New England Facility Masters Conference. And maybe we can, if possible, Matt, we'd love to, time allowing, maybe head over to your district. We want to walk those hallowed halls, take our boots off at the front door, keep those floors clean, and check out the space that you're managing. But Happy New Year, my friend. Thanks for chiming in. While we're letting other folks, if they want to put comments and things in, Paul, I got a question for you.
Yep.
If you were to have a moment or a couple of moments or experiences or something, what sticks out the most in your head from this year? Because you and I have arguably spent more time together this year than we ever have. You know, the one trip a month, mandatory 1 month trip a month, the podcast, all the stuff that we're doing and building. We talk about K-12 pros and Operations Hero that I'm getting involved in, all this stuff. What was kind of the coolest?
Well, last year around the New Hampshire conference, the Facilities Masters, we drove down to it, correct?
Yes.
and stopped on the way at some unassuming little roadside cafe. Met some awesome people. Bartender, she'd been there for 30 years or something like that. But then later on in the conference, that's when we did our interview with Bill Cooper. And I was so struck by his confidence and his comment that I'll put my guys up against anybody. You don't hear that from a lot of facilities directors about their crew. And he said it, you know, we can replay it. He was right out there, shoulders up, confident as can be. I'll put my guys against anybody. And I think that was just so striking for me.
And let me tell you something. They opened the registration for the 2023 Northern New England Facility Master Conference, and he registered like 7 or 8 of his team. So he doesn't just say it. You know, there's Scott Carpenter tells me all the time, you know, about your say-do ratio. He's been telling me it for 25 years. And he says, Pete, your reason why, he says, you do a lot of things. But the one thing that you do is you make sure your say-do ratio is in check. You know, when you say something, you do it. And Bill Cooper does that. You know, if he says that he puts his team up against anybody, he'll put his team up against anybody. But he knows that he's providing them with the tools, the skill sets, and the protection that they need to excel and to get better. And that's some powerful stuff. And that was a pretty passionate, powerful moment that he put in that moment. That was a fun trip. How he didn't. I mean, I made some world speed records on that one. You didn't even have a helmet.
I needed it for sure though. And I think probably the most daring episode was broadcasting from a hurricane.
Yes. Hurricane Ian.
That's not. I'm sure there aren't many other than newscasters. Not many podcasters that have a hurricane for a background. That's not piped in or recorded.
We gotta. I mean, we don't want to overshoot the runway, but I think we need to work on a challenge for 2023. I mean, our dance card's filling up already for our road trips. I mean, you're coming to St. Louis with me next month. And then somehow I pulled you into Miramichi, New Brunswick in February. That's going to be amazing.
That's just to keep you awake while you're driving 500 miles.
So I was talking to Super Dave, 562 each way. I was plotting it out. Super Dave is going to be up north in Maine, snowmobiling. I told him we stop by on the way. I said, I hope there's snow on the ground, but not on the roads, because we got some time to make. But we might have to find some active volcano or something to do a podcast from. There you go. Something we haven't done. We're running out of things that we can't say we've done together.
I know.
Snowstorms, hurricanes, tornadoes. We've done that.
Lighting fireworks on the beach.
Yeah. How many? I don't even. We got to figure out how many states. We'll have been to another country together in February.
Yeah.
Which will be nice.
From
But
coast to coast, we've gone together from East Coast to West
yeah,
Coast.
Michigan and Ohio, and that was a
Yeah.
cool trip. Ohio was a fun one.
Yeah, I think I hesitated a lot less when asked the question, would you like to go to a speakeasy under double secret probation? Because there was less hesitation in that question than when you asked me to be your
Yeah,
co-host.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that was like, absolutely.
That was so. I don't even know the name of that place.
I'm not sure if it does have a name because we did
It's
look
got a
it up.
name, but I don't know what it is. But how cool was that to have to try to find the place, and then when you find it, it was just like it was like a dream. It was just an amazing spot. So
Yeah, the Uber driver had a tough time because the address was in his phone, but he's saying there's nothing here.
doesn't exist.
And inside was one of the best whiskey bars and speakeasies that I've ever been in.
That hands down. I mean, Columbus, Ohio.
Just the decor, the wood walls and the hanging, chandeliers, and it was amazing. And it was all behind black glass or something. I'm not sure what. We were in an industrial park, right?
In order for the door to open, you had to pick up a payphone and tell them the secret password.
The old dial payphone too. It had the rotary payphone, the black rotary payphone.
Yeah. Matt's going to be at Northern New England. Awesome, Matt. We're looking forward to seeing you. David Young, you taught me well, Peach, to multitask. Yeah, tell that to Amy. She'll disagree with you because you can't multitask. But I guess he's talking about driving, drinking,
and texting. I'm hoping it's talk to text.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what he's learned the technologies. I was doing that before all this technology came into play.
Yeah.
Well, let's get the crystal ball out. What do you want to see in 2023? What do you want to do? I mean, we did 31 episodes. In essence, we did 31 episodes in about 46 weeks. So we took basically September to December. We took the end of September to the first week in December because of illness and loss of family members and things off. So if you take that out of the equation, we basically did an episode every week and a half. What do you want to do? What do you see in 2023 as my co-host, partner, and non-paid
employee? Is that what you say?
What did we start with? I paid you in hugs, right?
Yeah, right.
Hugs and t-shirts.
Hugs and hats. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that we just have so many interesting people in our circle in this facilities world that we're, wallowing in, that it's, I think more meeting people, getting out and seeing their place. I think that, the trip to New Rochelle and then into New Jersey in one day, I thought that was great to see, a couple of guys that we've known for years, but never really saw them in their world.
Mm-hmm.
We meet so many people in that conference space, or when we go down to New Jersey, it's in a casino, and it's in the business side of the convention side of the casino. But to see them in their workspace, their own, and to see how proud they are, and how they just love showing off their facility and their staff and the things that they do. I mean, I go back to when we were in the MFAA, and we ran a conference. We ran a monthly meeting at the Boston Garden. And with that catering deal, they always say you get, free admission to the museum, the sports museum. And, we can go to the sports museum anytime. We had 35 facilities guys from around the state. Yeah. And I asked I was doing the booking. I asked the catering person if she could hook us up with someone to give us a tour around the building. Right. We don't want to see trophies and t-shirts, which is great to see. Boston's a great sports city, but we can do that anytime. We wanted to take advantage of, I said, I want to go up on the rafters. I want to be above the flags.
Yep.
And I want to see where the Zamboni comes in and how it dumps its snow, and it's 12 stories up, or however, 7 stories, the ice level 7 stories above the ground level. And we were introduced to someone who was so excited that someone would ask for that and so proud of his facility.
Mm-hmm.
He called his electrical technician on the radio and had him putting on spotlights for us and showing us how it works when there's a performance. He took us on the catwalk, 35 guys on the catwalk above the Celtics flags. The floor was down for a Celtics game that night, and I've got pictures looking down on those flags. He showed us the air handlers. He told us what they struggled with. When in the wintertime, when all the doors open at 6:30 for a 7:00 game, and it's cold in the building because it chimneys the heat right out of the building with such a big space. So, to see and, to go to New Rochelle and see how proud he was of his place. I just think
that trench.
Yeah, that trench. And saying, yeah, we're going to be ready for school. We're going to be done. I mean, that was the length of that school. And we've got pictures of 6-foot construction workers below grade. Their head was below where the floor is going to be in 3 weeks. Right. We were a couple of weeks before school opened. Right.
Yep.
So I think I'd like to see that. I think there's so many people that we know in the industry, and not a lot of people go to their place and get to see their house, so to speak.
Right. No, it's funny. When you say that, it's the majority of the world, given that opportunity, would want to go to the museum and the locker room and all that other stuff. And we saw it at the Worcester Woo Sox tour for MFAA, which, by the way, that is a great take of a stadium. So well thought of.
Yep.
So connected to the community. I talked to some folks in Worcester last week, and I just said, guys, you got to be just so impressed with what you've built here in the last 15 years, not just the stadium, but the infrastructure in the city, the hotels, everything going around the convention center. It's amazing. But the majority of folks would go to that space and they just go, yeah, it's warm.
Yeah.
Or it's cool. It's lit. It works. And, only complain when something's broken.
Yep.
And don't have that fascination of how does it work or why does it work? It was kind of like the Worcester Stadium tour. And they're like, hey, when somebody tells you to put crushed stone up in this space for drainage, tell them to think twice because of the foot traffic and the picking up of all of the pebbles and putting them all over the place is 3 times the amount of work. Most people just walk across the crushed stone and don't think about what happens to it.
And there wasn't a lot of it, but they weren't afraid to show us the things that didn't work.
Right.
On the construction, that blown in insulation that was on the rafters, that once the weather got to it, it was falling like snow.
Yep.
And that's there's a lot to be said. A lot of people would walk right by that and be embarrassed and not show you. But those guys, the 2 guys that gave us the tour, they knew that we were interested in what was happening in that facility. I mean, the charging station for phones.
Oh, first sensory room in a stadium.
Sensory room, the first one in a professional ballpark that is a sensory room for special needs kids who need to gather themselves when they're in a loud environment like that, and so that they can be successful and be back out there and watch the game. I mean, that's who thinks of that stuff when they're building a stadium,
Well, no, nobody. That's the amazing thing. Like you're talking about, it's 2022, and we talk about the population that's increasing with children that are on the spectrum, have autism at some capacity, some level, and other special needs. And there's very few. Everybody talks about it. Everyone every day, and every student every day. But there's very few people that put that into practice, whether it's financial restraints, whether it's buy-in, whatever it is. But these guys did it. I mean, that stadium is built and designed for every person every day, and they show it, and they should be proud of it. And that's something that I've really fallen in love with from the occupational standpoint that I've been able to be in, is I've gotten to walk these hallowed halls for 25 years, and I've gotten to experience this. And I can remember being, 22 and new in the industry and going, yeah, I got a job. I sell software. I sell it to schools and da 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 da. And this guy just won't shut up about telling me about T8s and super T8s and, all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden something clicks and I go, this is actually pretty cool stuff. Like their passion is rubbing off on me. And then as I grew, I'm just like, this is neat. And then I start asking questions. And then I start listening and following and going out of my way. It's kind of like Burke Jones, our last guest, who's doing an awesome job with his podcast. Dude's putting on some great content and phenomenal guests that he's got. And he had a guest from Northwest ISD yesterday. And Northwest ISD is in Texas. It's out just outside of Dallas, Fort Worth. Their student enrollment increase since COVID. Now, most student populations have gone down around the country. I mean, there's school districts that are missing kids. They don't know where they are. They don't know if they've moved. They don't know if they're homeschooled, what have you. 2,000 kids a year on average added to their district over the last 3 years.
Yeah,
some interesting challenges.
But in that fully autistic school in New Jersey.
Well, it's fully autistic school in New Jersey.
Yeah.
But
with the main street built right into it, with retail and opportunities for those kids to learn how to work a belt at a supermarket.
You want to know something? This is flipping a little bit, and I'm okay with it because it's actually a great point that you brought up. I think every high school should have a layout like that. I don't think it's just kids with autism that should have a main street in their school that they learn how to buy things and bag groceries and order food and do all these things. Sadly, across the board, our kids aren't learning this stuff.
Right.
Not learning it at home.
And the communities are willing to do it. I mean, those were real businesses that are in the town. Mm-hmm. It's a real bank that opened a branch inside the school. And going back to the Worcester, the Woosok Stadium, those restaurants up on that street, there's a place for a guest business to be in. It's like you go inside the stadium and the Woosoks are making money selling you hamburgers and sausage, but they're allowing businesses to come in as competition so that they can be part of the community. It's amazing when you do that.
A weekly shift of restaurants that come in. You have a different restaurant every week that comes in and does that pop-up restaurant just outside the stadium.
Yep.
I thought what was really cool about that, and we're bouncing all over the place, and I love it, but we just got so much to do and little time to do it. What's really cool is the fact that you can walk and actually sit in the stadium, whether there's a game on or not. They have that setup in center left field there with tables and high tops that you can actually go and have a meeting and sit and overlook the stadium. Like, where do you do that?
Buy a sandwich on the street and walk in and sit there and just, look out at the field and have lunch on a nice day.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, it's so welcoming.
Oh yeah. Well, we've got St. Louis.
Yep.
We've got New Brunswick and we've got New Jersey in the first quarter. We've got our first 3 months covered. I think Ohio's in April. I think we should do Ohio again.
Yeah, Ohio's a fun place. Good people.
I'm thinking Alabama should be. I've been trying to get you to go to Alabama for years for May. And June might be another New Brunswick. They got New Brunswick ASBO in June. They always have it in pretty cool places. St. Andrews and Moncton. And we'll have to find out where it is when we go up to Miramichi. But yeah, we got to figure out where else we're going to go. DC, ASBO International. We got to do ASBO International. We got to go to Washington, DC for that this year. You're on that list.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you plenty of advance notice.
See our old friend down there. What's blanking on his name with the.
He's out. He's not there anymore.
No.
Nope.
Round on the rink.
No, he got another executive director. I think Kenny told me he's in Lebanon, the Olympic hockey team, or Ty Newberry.
Yeah. Ty Newberry.
Yeah. No, he stepped down as executive director there, I think, a year or two ago. So, no, we got some big stuff. We got some big stuff brewing. So, yeah, we're going to be looking for guests. That's for sure. Let me just check our feeds here, make sure I'm not missing any comments. I see David, Matt Oliver had to bounce out. He says he's going to listen to the rest later. Appreciate that. Matt was, I think he's probably up there with the number of episodes listened to and watched. He was pretty following pretty strong. And then David Young, I appreciate when you showcase kids with special needs. They don't know any different. And they're just kids. Yeah, well, it's we've learned a lot this year. Yeah. We've learned, and what's crazy when we talk about, getting to go down and and visit Eric and Sasha and see the school and talk about all this stuff. You actually started doing, I mean, you're almost on year 10 where you and Kenny talked about the importance of facility departments working with special needs departments. And you guys were talking about it when nobody was talking about it. And I'll never forget, the simple thing of the ceiling tile with a water stain on it.
Yeah.
And how important it is to not have water stains on it, because someone that has got some difficulties focusing or paying attention, they could, or they might see things that you don't see. They might see a face or something looking at them. So it's kind of interesting. But David,
that was a long time ago we did that, and both coming from family backgrounds where we have children that have some struggles one way or another. And it was personal as well as wanting to get out there and tell the story. And a lot of the facilities folks didn't realize how much we affect the special needs population in what we do. You just can't walk in and put up a bulletin board in the corridor outside the special needs class. You can't run your hammer drill and do that. There's so many things that people just did without thinking for years. And we tried to make them aware of that. Kenny and I do a lot of that stuff that sometimes it takes a few years for the world to catch up to us. You feel like you're talking to the wall, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow. I mean, it happens. You'll see it happens when you bring up kids. I mean, my kids are in their 40s now, but I remember my oldest boy going for his first real job interview, and sitting down with the owner of the company, and he said, "Is all I kept thinking when he was talking to me and asking me questions, Dad, is I kept hearing a voice say, 'Don't say yup. Say yes.'" And I'm going, "Wow, you were listening."
Yes.
I had no idea you were listening.
Yeah.
And that's the same with the stuff that Kenny and I are doing when we go out and we speak. It's like it takes time to get traction. Then all of a sudden, when it clicks and people are hearing it, it's heartwarming. It really is to get out there and spread the word and get people to be aware of stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I think you guys, and I'll put myself in the circle of trust too, is trying to stay ahead of the curve of what everybody else is talking about, but making sure that it has significant relevance and importance, and getting people to be more self-aware of everything around them. I think that goes with leadership talks. I think you and I going on 19 years. 19 years ago was a whole lot different when a bunch of facility directors got together. Now it's a lot more talking about how to lead properly. It's not about what type of microfiber to buy. It's how to get your team engaged, how to lead from behind sometimes, and lead from where you are, mindset, and really figuring out all of the new pieces of the puzzle that are happening, because the occupation is evolving so fast, and your requirements are growing every day exponentially, right? Every new technology that comes out, every new product that comes out, every new type of cleaning. I mean, shoot, people were barely green cleaning, and then somebody said, "Hey, let's do blue cleaning," and it's just water that's got molecules blasted and whatever it does. Stuff is changing so quickly just to keep up with it.
And that brings us to our friend JP Mayo and episode number 6 or whatever it was.
Oh yeah.
He's been a longtime friend, and someone who's a vendor, but doesn't present himself that way. He wants to help. He truly wants to help. It's not about making the almighty buck.
Yeah. I had a JP Mayo moment a couple weeks ago. I was in Connecticut, Aswell, and Connecticut School Building and Grounds did a sustainability workshop of basically a half day. It's a little bit more than a half day. About 5 or 6 different presenters. I was the second to last presenter. And I was talking about the importance of preventive maintenance. And someone said something, and for those that have been listening, know that I have been in the CMMS software space for a very long time. That's really my expertise in this world. is in workflow management, asset management, inventory control, after hours use of buildings, the technology management piece of that, organization, data reports, all that fun stuff. And I've worked for a couple companies, and I got back involved with Scott Carpenter and Pat Buchanan that founded a company called Operations Hero about a year and a half ago. And this July, I decided to go and work for him. I called and said, "Hey guys, I'm going to come work for you."
You decided for them.
Yeah, I didn't give them a choice. I don't give people choices. I just tell them, I'm coming over. I'm working for you. Whether you pay me or not, that's going to be up to you. I'm coming on board and working with you. And so we've been knocking it out of the park, rocking and rolling, and just having a ton of fun and helping folks. And it was funny because one of the attendees kind of made a comment of like, not that I was making a sales pitch, but he made a comment about, the specific Operations Hero. And I said, "Hey man, look, I don't care what you buy. I don't care what you use. I don't care how you use it. Just use something." Yeah. And like the room just had this blank stare, like looking at me. And a lot of the people knew me, so they've heard me say it before. But when you have that genuine, all you care about is that they do something that improves the environment and the impact on the kids. Then all else is that. Then you're not a salesperson anymore. Right. You're a solutions provider, and it may be yours, but it may be someone else's. But just educate people and let them know, what it is that makes the most sense. The other thing we did this year is we started K-12 Pros. An idea, what seemed like a very simple concept and idea turned into a very complicated and expensive endeavor that will pay dividends in the end. But K-12 Pros was started in I guess August, and we're helping folks, we're helping districts, and we're helping people that have a need for an operations professional, whether it's an intern position, a mentorship program for a younger, inexperienced facility director with the old bull on the hill to tell them how to do things a little bit differently. They have the intelligence, they don't have the experience yet, but different programs that we can offer and help school districts and local governments with interim help, because there's a huge gap. In the state of Massachusetts, in 1 week, I think there was 1% of the total facility director positions in school districts became available for hiring in December 1st. I don't know when you've seen that in your career. If you have, I'd be surprised. I haven't. But that's off and running, and we're having fun. And it was funny because a company that whether we develop a fruitful financial partnership or not, I'm thoroughly impressed with them. It's Twin Lakes Consulting in Connecticut, and I've known their founder for quite some time. And we were talking, and they were talking about how do you place the right people. And I say, well, I think about something very simple. Every person that I want to place in a school or a local government, the thing I say is, would I want this person taking care of my kid's school? Because every kid is our kid. Right? That whole "it takes a village." We can argue whether it takes a village to raise a child is a correct statement or not. The village has become very large and small at the same time. The United States has become a very small place thanks to social media and global economy and every other thing. So we really are. We represent all of the kids, and so I always say, if I look at someone and I talk to someone and I say, would I want that person taking care of the buildings that my kids are in? And if the answer is yes, then yeah, that's the person that we want to come on board.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting, when you have that perspective and that JP mindset,
right?
How successful you are, not just financially, but in life. Like he's a happy guy, right? And he does a great job. He's well respected and well liked, and he goes every day with like, hey, if you want this, great. If you don't, that's okay too. Just
right.
Just
get something, because you need something for what you're asking me.
Right. If you didn't need it, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Now, whether you get it from me or not, that's a different story. If I do my job right, you'll get it from me, and if you don't, then you won't. So, look at this, Mr. Cooks, David Cooks coming in, solutions provider. Nice, welcome, David. Happy New Year. David Cooks is just an amazing human. If you're not following David Cooks on social media, and you need a shot of inspiration, motivation, perspiration, David Cooks is the guy, author of Paralysis to Purpose, and a line that I've stolen that I've told him to trademark, and I hope that he has, so I can start paying him some form of royalty someday. But your willingness to endure, your ability to endure is far greater than your willingness to endure. And he is proof positive of that, and just one of the most awesome humans in my life. So happy New Year, David. Thanks for coming in and saying hello.
Yeah.
So
and you talked a bit about the mentorship and the old bull. So I guess, you were pointing that towards me, talking about the old bull and the younger,
yep.
and the younger people that do have the brains to do it and the knowledge. And it's just your experience can only help. I mean, I'm still learning. I've 30 years in the business. I'm mentoring a young facilities director in Salem, our friend Z. He's like a sponge. He just can't get enough.
He's amazing.
Of any of us when we're talking. But, I think I had the idea that I'd seen it all. I worked in a small community. I worked in a big community. We've been around, like we said, coast to coast, end to end, up north, mid country. But he has a school in a mall.
Yep.
I've never seen that. They rent space in the Salem Mall. For those who see those pictures every Halloween of Salem, and there's that cobblestone sidewalk with all the people dressed in all of their Halloween gear walking down the street, hundreds at a time. He has a school on the second floor of that street with all the retail at street level and their alternative high school on the second floor. I never would have thought that was even possible to have school in a mall.
That's been my greatest, I think my greatest learning has been, my greatest learning experience has been getting to travel to all these different places. It was kind of like my first trip to Alaska. And I know you had been to Alaska, but well before I had been there. But I went there for a school event, and I was talking to a school business official in a village that represented a village in Alaska. And I said, hey, do you rent your facilities out much? Now, again, silly, ignorant claim on my part that I should know that they do, because every school gives their space, whether they charge for it or give it to different events and everything. And they said, oh, yeah. I said, well, what kind of events do you have at your school? And I said, birthday parties, funerals, wakes. I said, what? And they said, yeah, there's no funeral home in our village, so we have funerals and wakes here. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And that's what they do. Is they have it is literally the fabric and the centerpiece of the community in Alaska, because there aren't a lot of places that people can go. And it was like, never would have thought of that. And so you're right. When we live in this little microcosm of our community and we don't get out, we just assume that everybody does the same thing. But they do a lot of things different. And there's always something to be learned. I mean, it's funny when, depending on, I've now know which states I should complain about donkey basketball and which ones I should complain about roller derby. And now there's BMX freestyle being done in gymnasium. I saw David Gallego. They had the Traveling Marines BMX freestyle group come into their gymnasium, and I'm sitting there going, David, how stressed out were you with those bikes pedaling and going off of jumps and just envisioning sliding those metal pegs across the floor and the damage that it could do? And nobody fell, and they're well trained and everything, but I never would have thought of that. So it's kind of interesting. We do come up with a lot of you can't make this stuff up stories. I mean, that's you and I with our windshield time. There's no lack of storytelling. It's like amazing.
And then you get to meet great people like Jim Vicka. How long have you known Jim?
I've known Jim just a little bit longer than, well, actually, I think I knew Jim back in 1997 when I originally started. But Jim, the best story with Jim was,
and you can tell the truth because his note here says he'll listen later. So so there's two great stories with Jim. So Jim was the director of facilities in a school district
in South Carolina, and Beaufort, South Carolina. And he's been retired for a number of years, but he also had a company to do public speaking. He traveled around the country and did public speaking. And Vic's old school. He's been around a long time. His dad was a director of facilities. I actually was given the Vicar Award in memory of his father a number of years ago, 2016, I think it was. And just a great guy. And when I found out that he had the V group for speaking, I said, hey, listen, if you're ever in New England, please give me a call. I'd love to just drive you to wherever you're going. And so he called in, I guess it was in August or September of 2004. You were there. You weren't there for this part, but I had just started. I just returned. So I was in a company in the late 90s working the software. I got fired. Last in, first out company was acquired. A whole bunch of stuff happened. And was gone for a little bit. And I came back. And a number of the people that I was working with and had sold or was in the process of selling thought, I took the money and ran because I just disappeared. I went and started a spring water delivery business. Wasn't the case. So I had a lot of making up to do. And needless to say, I wasn't well recognized or well known the way that I appreciate being done today. So Vic calls me and says, hey, can you drive me down to Falmouth to the MFAA fall conference? I got a speaking gig there. And obviously he wasn't getting paid a lot of money, so saving the rental car. So I drive up to Logan, about 50 miles from my house. I drive down to Falmouth, about 75 miles. He says, now when we get there, you come in with me. I said, no, Vic, I'm going to just drop you off in the parking lot. I said, I might not even stop. And he goes, come on. So I started to tell him, I said, no, I've got a lot of making up to do. And these people deserve, to have their event and all this other stuff. And sure, wouldn't you know it, as soon as I pull up, he gets out of the car and a couple of the directors of facilities come out and they, what are you doing here? And And I said, see you later. And I just left him there. I said, I'll pick you up in 2 days and meet me at the Bourne Bridge. And then another one was he called me and he says, I know this is far away from you, but I'm going to Waterville, Maine for Jim Rainey for EPMA, MA, and he was flying into Portland. And I says, well, I just happen to be driving. I'm just happen to be driving to Canada that day. I just happen to be in that area. Portland's almost 200 miles away from my house, and Waterville's another 125 miles. I'm like, I'll pick you up.
Yeah. Do it.
It's 2008. It was 2008. I was going to the Fairmont and St. Andrews, and picked him up in Portland, drove him up to Waterville. He goes, what are the chances that you'd be driving to Canada, going by the Portland airport the exact same time that I land, that I'm going to Waterville? I says, man, pretty good. You just don't need to find a ride back to Portland because I'm not coming back until the day after you're supposed to leave. But that if I could be the old bull for a second and tell the younger generations of folks coming into the industry or coming into any industry, the single greatest learning experience I ever got was windshield time. Yeah. It was just getting that time with people. I mean, if you were to calculate the number of hours and days or months that equates to you and I just talking about life and things and what goes with it, it's a lot. And that stuff is what I learned to learn from most about the industry, about the people, about what you need, about how to fix it, all that other stuff. It's not all books and nonsense. It's that people thing. So
and it's so much better when you get expressions and voice tones and not LOL and BTW and the modern day stuff. I mean, I know that's our world that we live in, but I think we get so much more from the FaceTime and the all the expressions that go with it.
Well, all the work that you do is behind a curtain, and when something goes wrong, you hear about it. And when you've said it 100 times, people don't call you to say, how's your mother?
Right.
They're calling because they have a problem and they don't understand what it takes to fix it. And so knowing that there's people that actually care that those problems happen and then try to help you with figuring out how to fix them, it's a big thing. It's a big thing. So
that's our big push. It's like we're like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
We're the man behind the curtain, or the woman behind the curtain that's pushing the levers to make it all work. And we don't want to be there when the lights come up. We don't want to be there when the cameras show up and they're opening a new school and they're cutting the ribbon. We want to make sure that the lights are on.
Yeah.
The loudspeakers are working when they need to make their announcements, and the bleachers are there for the press to be in when they're cutting the ribbon.
Right. Well, I mean, that's you just make the lights are on. The hotel chain might say we'll leave the lights on for you, but that's the worst representation in the school district is the lights are on and nobody's home, right?
Right.
Management of the space and having it all lit up and not having an explanation for it. That's another big piece to it. I got to tell this funny story. So last week I'm in this goes with when we were talking about facility directors, and last week I flew to Tampa on Monday. I flew down and get off the plane, and Tampa's got like the world's longest escalator. You've been to Tampa, right? Yep. You get off the plane, you get on a train, you go down a long escalator to the baggage claim, to the world's largest escalator, up to another train, to another escalator, to the rental car facility. It's a process. And so I'm going up the escalator after I landed, and my inside voice came out, and I said, "How the heck?" And a couple of bad words. I said, "How the is this escalator so long? Where are we going?" And I hear a voice behind me say something, and I go, "Oh, sorry, that was my inside voice coming out." And thought nothing else of it. Got on the train, got on my rental car, went and did my business. The next day, Tuesday night, I'm back at the airport, and I'm sitting at the gate, and this guy says, "Hey, you flew in from Boston yesterday?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." He goes, "I was on the escalator with you." I go, "Oh, yeah, okay, cool." And
nobody was listening, didn't you?
I said, and he was sitting behind me on the flight down, right? So he was in the row behind me, and then he was behind me on the escalator. Now he's behind me boarding the plane to get on the plane. I says, "Well, unless you're in row, I think it says I'm in row 6, so unless you're in row 7, you're safe." And he says, "No, I'm in row 3." I go, "Oh, okay." And so we're talking, and he says, "What do you do?" So I told him, and I said, "So what do you do?" And he says, "Oh, I work in nuclear and fossil fuel reactors." And I said, "You got to be kidding me." I said, "I met my first employee of a nuclear power plant. She's now like an awesome facility director in the town of Plymouth." He goes, "Oh, I live in Plymouth."
Wow.
Right? Yeah, I live in Plymouth. My kids go to school in Plymouth. He said, "Oh, no kidding. You're in good company." So I get on the plane for row 5. I didn't realize I was row 5 on the flight down. I was in row 2 on the flight back. He was sitting directly behind me.
Again.
Yeah, again. Yeah, talk about small world. Really cool, right? Yeah, the people it's all you'd be able to tell the story, have something to relate to, bring it back around, and there's somebody that's fixing something that knows someone. So it's kind of cool. Kind of cool. So, well, this has been a great year, Paul. All in all, I think we've done. I think we've exceeded my expectations of what I was hoping for to get out of this year. I hope the feeling is the same with you. I think that next year we've got some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, it's always harder when you after the first year, right? Because what to expect the first year.
Well, I think we're going to get I think we're going to align with our travel and with what we're doing, and I think this year was working out the kinks and everything else. I think I know we're gonna have more episodes. I know we're gonna be doing new things. I got to get you the dates. Speaking of that, March for New Jersey, get the New York State Association of Independent Schools, the Mohonk House in New Paltz, the inaugural event. We're gonna have them on for 2023. What I want to do too is because we're getting such good traction and we're getting the downloads and we're getting this, we want to help the people that help us. So if it's an association or a school or a group that's doing awesome stuff and they're retaining mine or our services, like when we put this birds of different feathers can still flock together, we're going to have them on the podcast. So I predict we're going to be in the top 5, possibly the top 3%. And the number doesn't really matter. The number is the number in my eyes, as far as that we're getting people to listen and that are continuing to listen, and it's good stuff. It's not controversial. So that's my prediction. My prediction is we do better. We're going to be we'll have more episodes. I think at the end of next year, we'll probably be creeping in on episode 100. and I got to tell you, I'm just so. I know I don't need to tell you this, but I am so grateful for our friendship and for you just being in my corner all the time. I know there were a lot of times that you probably were looked at for being crazy for being in my corner and giving you advice and just saying, why don't you let Peach just go fall on his face and
And
figure
you've
it
done
out.
that.
And I've done it.
You've done that
Um,
too.
but you've always been there to pat the dirt off and say now you've done that, now fix it and move on. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gotten and done many of the things I've gotten to do, and we're not even going into we'll get into the other piece of the next story, but just to really appreciate your friendship and everything that you've done for me over the years, and this year has just been one small piece of what we got for next year and things to come. So thanks for saying yes that night that I just sent you the note and said why don't we start this thing and get going.
Yeah. Who would have thought, right? 2004. Who would in May? Is that what we said it was?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Who would have thought we'd be here today?
Yep.
Doing this.
You. The first time I talked to you, we've told the story before, but the first time I talked to you, I called your office. I talked to Carol.
Yep.
And I talked to, I'm trying to think of the other person I talked to. And I talked to you. And the first thing you told me was for me not to call you on your cell phone, because Bob called you on your cell phone and you were on the roof.
Right.
And you said, don't ever call me again on the cell phone, because he got the cell phone by playing reindeer sales games.
Yep.
And there was never such a proud moment as it was in, I guess it was 2005 or 6. I guess it was 2006 when you gave me your cell phone when I came and picked you up in Wilmington, North Carolina for Dude You after you had a relative pass away.
And see how quick I changed when I needed you.
Yeah, I said this guy gave me his cell phone. He gave me a cell phone. Now what am I gonna do? I'm gonna call him.
You're driving to Wilmington to pick me up at the airport.
Yeah. So I mean, how cool was that, right?
Yeah.
It was just such a cool
in Pat's Jeep, right?
Yeah.
You took Pat Buchanan's Jeep.
Yeah, so proud that I had the top down. It was a beautiful day, and then I found out that you and the son aren't the best of friends all the time.
Yeah, right. Hey,
yeah,
we got through it.
But yeah, no, I mean, when you say who would have thought, I would tell you that I wouldn't have thought, but I definitely have hoped. I have always hoped to have great long-standing relationships with the people that I have had the honor to serve, and I think I've been able to fulfill a lot of those hopes and dreams, and I appreciate you being on the forefront of that, and now being my go-to ride along, hang with, windshield time, crazy idea. For those those people don't get to experience this, and I'm not sure that they want to, but we'll just do the St. Louis Sunday text. It was about 7:30 at night about a month ago, and I send Paul a text and it just says, "Hey, you ever been to St. Louis?" And Paul, even after all of these adventures, still comes back with a serious response of, yes, beautiful city, especially if you go during whatever Labor Day or whatever. Yeah, Labor Day. He says, I hear it's beautiful in January. You want to come with me? And because I'll get back to you in a day or two. And then that's it. And the plane ticket's booked, and then it's let's go and do this. So random Sunday text from me involve flying or driving someplace long, and he still answers after all of these silly efforts.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get to Alaska one of these days too.
I'm working on that for next year. I got to see Santa Claus. He's he's 75, and just talked to him on Christmas, and I told him I got to get up and see him. So
yeah, we'll have to bring my sidekick with us too.
Yes,
we'll visit family, and we'll make it a big deal.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think that would be a good thing. I've been trying to do North Pole for Christmas. that's still on the must-do list because I don't have a bucket list. Yeah.
How many people can say they did that, right?
Yeah. Well, there was a friend that works for Asbo International. She did it with her family last year, and she's like, I know that you're friends with Santa Claus up here in North Pole, but this is the cabin we stayed in. It's amazing. Angie Tomble, and she sent me pictures and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in love. Northern Lights, snow, -40 degrees, reindeer omelets. Perfect. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, that might be next year. So before we go, I know you're going to ask me.
Yeah, and a shout out. I want to hear it.
And so here's the shout out
this week.
So here's the deal. I've been thinking about this, and I'm thinking that I'm sure that Operations Hero, now that I'm working with my boys again and doing some good things, I'm sure they're going to want to do some level of some sort of sponsorship. And we're doing weekly heroes, so I haven't asked them yet, but I'm sure they're going to want to do something special for our weekly heroes or our podcast episode heroes. And so I'm thinking about, we're going to put together a Be Awesome box with a T-shirt and maybe a coffee mug and a book or something, just something small to send to each of these, because we talk about them. We don't know if they ever listen,
Right.
but it'd be really cool if we sent them a handwritten card that says thank you and read the story on your episode. And I thought no more fitting than to showcase. And this just happened this week. And our friend George, who used to be in Bristol Warren.
Yeah.
So it was Bristol Warren, and I can near and dear to me. This episode, Hero Custodian. So this is going to be number 1 of the Be Awesome box. I'm going to get this. We might need to get George to help us, even though he's not there anymore, with who to send this to, the best person to send it to. But Hero Custodian, honored by school committee, which too often people don't get recognized by anyone for their great action. So glad to see that Bristol Warren Regional School Committee recognized a local hero during Monday night's meeting. Bobby Santos, the custodian at Gutierrez Elementary School, was recognized for his quick action that saved a student's life who began choking during lunch period in October. His actions, covered in this paper shortly afterward, went viral on social media, with hundreds of people liking and sharing the story. Gutierrez principal Christine Hughes read a proclamation regarding the event and praising Santos not just for his actions that day, but every day, in carrying out his duties at the school. Here's the full statement. It was a busy lunch period with the upper elementary students, consisting of 3 teaching assistants and Robert Santos, the Gutierrez school custodian, who was affectionately called Mr. Bobby. Mr. Bobby has many responsibilities that lead to the cleanliness and safety of our almost 100-year-old school. The students look to him to make sure things are running very smoothly, as they always are. At the busy lunch period mentioned above, Mr. Bobby is one more set of hands to open the many juice boxes and milk cartons. How often do you have that in the job description of a custodian, open juice boxes and milk cartons? He talks to students as they practice dumping liquids out before recycling. We practice everything very well at Gutierrez School. Hats off. One day in October, though lunch seemed different, I was doing rounds in the lunchroom when a teaching assistant saw a student looking distressed. The teaching assistant called out a student is choking. Mr. Bobby moved quickly to get behind the student to administer the Heimlich maneuver. It was almost a minute, a very long minute. The child was eventually able to loosen the fruit from their throat and breathe. We all started to breathe again, knowing the child was okay. Mr. Bobby's quick action was faster than any phone call for help. Mr. Bobby didn't think about what to do. He just took action, knowing how to perform this life-saving technique. One student reflected afterwards and said, I knew everything would be okay because Mr. Bobby and Principal Hughes were there. Mr. Bobby has been declared a local hero, but to him, he was just doing his job. Mr. Bobby has pride in his valuable position at Gutierrez Elementary School. We thank him from the bottom of our hearts because he is our district superstar for his heroic actions at Gutierrez Elementary School. Thank you, Mr. Bobby Santos.
I think that's a little more than just doing your job as a custodian.
Tell me about it. Opening those juice boxes and milk boxes is a lot of work.
Yeah.
No, look at whether it's the occupation or just all the people that get into it and that are similar. Extremely humble and always just feel like whatever it is they're doing is just doing their job. I thought obviously that has a pretty powerful meaning between you and I for obvious reasons. But I also, when I read it and I saw that it was George's school that he was at for many years, no better fitting than to send something to a friend. So our first Be Awesome box is going to go out in the mail here in the next day or two. And we're going to start to send Be Awesome boxes to people that we recognize. And we just find them online, by the way. I just do school maintenance hero, school maintenance custodian saves life. I do random searches, and there's a whole bunch of them. So what I would tell you is, if you're a facility professional, start finding these stories and reading them to your staff, because for people to think that they're just doing their job or that it'll never happen to him, I'm sure Mr. Bobby didn't wake up that morning and say, hey, I'm going to save a kid's life today. And when the time came and the questions happened, he was the first to stand up and go to it. So hats off, pretty cool stuff. But I think that's going to do it. I think we're up against the clock. This was a good one, as they all are. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy
See
New
you
Year
next
to you,
year.
too.
We'll see you sooner than later.
Stay in, be safe, stay off the roads. It's crazy out there.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely crazy. I'm staying in. It's warming up. The weather's warming up. It's going to be 58 up here this weekend. It's going to be nice. So we're going to hang loose. So I'll see you in a couple weeks in person. I'll hopefully see you next week or soon thereafter for another episode. In the meantime, for all of you that have listened, watched, followed, supported, liked, shared, done all that fun stuff for us over the last 31 episodes, thank you is not words enough. We really appreciate it. If you've stayed with us all this time and you haven't given us a 5-star rating and review on the podcast platform or followed us on YouTube, please, if we deserve it, give it to us. If we don't, send Paul a message, PAUL at BeAusm, BEAUSM. Figure the only non-paid employee should get all the complaints. He should be the head complaint department, because that's worth something, because he can hear about all the stuff I did wrong and chew me out for it. But no, seriously, if we don't deserve it and we don't want to give it to us, I get it. Just let us know what we did to not deserve it so that we can try to fix it, because we want to earn as many people's 5-star rating and reviews, build that credibility and product back, up to where we want it to be in that top 3 to 5% at the end of 2023. And we'll be talking to you real soon. So in the meantime, if you can be anything, be awesome.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.